doesn't it do something for them practical? Instead of whining about this tiny slither of land which Israel occupies, why don't they realise that if there's going to be peace in the region, it relies on there being a Palestinian solution and there relies on there being an Israeli solution? That can happen, but the first thing that has to happen is that the Arab governments and the Palestinians realise that Israel isn't going anywhere. If they made that realisation, why would they be firing rockets into Israel proper? This isn't disputed territory, they're firing rockets into Israel. Why are they doing that?
Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are meeting me for the first time,
hey City, welcome back to the channel. It's a girl VeraMoore and I am back with another reaction video. Oh my goodness, this is Douglas Moore. If you haven't seen any of our reactions to Douglas, trust me, you are definitely missing a lot. And this is Anglo-Muslim scholar counsels Douglas Moore with facts about Hamas gets destroyed instantly. Oh my days. It's been a while we reacted to Douglas. Honestly, I can't wait to get into the video. This video is from Clevy React 2. Without wasting much of our time, let's get straight into the video.
my name is Clevy and it is so nice to meet you. We have presented with another video today. You guys, this is gotten from the big questions, and of course we know that there will always be a lot of questions being asked in this session. But we are going to be focusing our highlights on, the discussion around the Israel and the Palestine conflict. You guys, in the panel, we have Peter Hitchens, we have Douglas Moore, we also have Zoe Williams. Make sure you stick around towards the end to get my own opinion. Let's find out. Let's dive right into it.
Is Israel justified in bombing Gaza? Rabbi Shockett, you're just back from Israel, aren't you?
Indeed, yeah.
How can this be justified? How is it anything but hugely disproportionate? I mean, upwards of 75 children killed. How does that weigh on your conscience?
Let me say my heart certainly goes out to the Palestinian people. I think it's a tragedy of the highest order, and I think I would call upon all Palestinian people to stand up once and for all against the catastrophe of a Hamas terrorist so-called government that is using them as human shields. At the end of the day, and the bottom line is that whereas Israel looks to practice as much restraint as possible, where Israel certainly looks to avoid civilian casualty as much as possible, the flip side is that Hamas looks to deliberately target as many civilians as possible. We've practiced restraint now for the better part of 3-4 years. 6,000 rockets having landed upon Israel. It begs the question, are we just supposed to sit back and take it on the chin?
How many Israelis have been killed in those 6 years?
It's not about a numbers game. It's not a question of how many, because if they had it their way, if every one of those missiles had gone off and they had killed 2-3 million Israelis in the process, that's precisely what they'd be looking to achieve.
Well, Middle East historian.
Maybe it was good fortune that those rockets didn't go off, and we're not looking to target any sort of civilians in response.
Middle East historian Taj Hage, I mean, Barack Obama said this. He said, if someone was sending rockets into my house, where my 2 daughters sleep at night, I'm going to do everything in my power to stop that, and I would expect Israelis to do the same thing.
I mean, that's quite true, but the point is we need to understand how the situation has come about. We seem obsessed with the current situation. We need to understand how Israel came into being. We can debate here from now until doomsday about what's happening today, but we need to understand what has created the situation. How many of us know about the Hussein McMahon correspondence? How many of us know about the Sykes-Picot Agreement? How many of us know about the Balfour Declaration? All of them are duplicitous agreements that brought about the state of Israel.
But we are where we are.
Yeah, and to call Hamas a terrorist organization, what is the Stalag, the Irgun and the Haganah? How many of us know this? You see, we only know one side of the narrative. It's easy for people to say that Hamas is a terrorist organization, yet they were democratically elected. I might not like them. In fact, I don't agree with Hamas a lot of the time, but I cannot say they're just terrorists. How come one person's terrorist and another person's freedom fighter?
Andrew Murray?
Well, it's not the case that they're freedom fighters. The first thing that Hamas did when they were allegedly elected was to kill their co-religionists in the Gaza, was to throw people off buildings, to shoot people in the back when they're running away. This is what the Hamas do to their own co-religionists in the Gaza, to other Palestinians. So the first thing is that Hamas not only inflict terror on the people of Israel, they also inflict it on other Palestinians. It's for the Palestinian peoples, as the rabbi said, to try to overthrow this terrorist organization. An organization which fights, if I may
As terrorists.
Well, an organisation which fulfills
come off it.
Well, I don't know what else you call an organisation which has killed hundreds of it.
What was the Irgun? What was the Haganah?
Well, the Ergun and the Hagan are not operating at the moment.
No, but what were they?
Well, they were terrorist organisations
Thank
at the
you.
time. But I would say that we're talking about what's happening at the present. And the present situation is that Israel builds bunkers in which its civilians have to shelter from rocket fire from the Hamas. The Hamas builds bunkers and hides its rockets in it, and then puts civilians on top of those bunkers. That is a terrorist organisation.
What do you expect in a David and Goliath struggle? What do you expect in a David and Goliath struggle?
That is an organisation that has no respect for human lives, not Palestinian lives and not Israeli lives.
F-16s?
Mahmoud, you know people in the Gaza, and also you're from the West Bank. Can you? And it's all about putting on a completely different pair of spectacles to try and understand the other side's position, because that's the only way we're ever going to get anywhere. Can you understand the Israeli position?
I don't understand the Israeli position because they are causing so much carnage and bloodshed at the moment that is completely disproportionate for what they are claiming to achieve.
Okay, Rabbi Shoket, could you... And Peter, I'll bring you in a second. Could you, as calmly as you can, explain to Mahmoud again your position?
I would only ask you, because I've heard this bantered about for so long, what constitutes a proportionate response? In other words, if they spend the last 3 years throwing 6,000 rockets into Israel, would you consider a proportionate response for Israel dropping 6,000 missiles back into Gaza, and however many may be killed in the process, then so be it? I wonder what the UN would have to say to that.
Well, Rabbi Shochat is actually vocaling so many myths and so many misinformation about what's really happening on the ground. You know, Hamas was agreed to a ceasefire for the last 6 months before the outbreak of the recent violence, and no rockets were fired at Israel. Israel has recently engineered a situation in which it forced Hamas to shoot rockets at Israel.
And you're talking to me about myths?
And Israel have done in the last 6 months. In the last 6 months, can I continue?
Well, these guys are just disturbed by something you just said, and it behoves me to actually ask why.
First of all, rockets continue to come during the ceasefire from groups, not just Hamas, but Islamic Jihad. Second of all, Hamas ended the ceasefire, and before Israel went into Gaza last week, they fired hundreds of missiles back into Israel. You know, the Israeli people have suffered for the last 5 to 8 years with thousands of missiles being fired onto their towns.
In the last 8
500
years,
rockets from Hamas over the last week as well.
Only 16 Israelis were killed in
only 16.
18. It's, of course, it is a sad when one person is killed. But we have here proportions. 16 Israelis are killed in the 8 years. We have 4,000 people, Palestinians, are killed on the Gaza Strip by the Israeli missiles and by Israeli assassination squads.
I just wonder. I mean, Robert, you are from the. It's to you, Peter Hitchens. I mean, this is a difficult time for friends of Israel, capital F and small f, isn't it?
It's a very difficult time. Partly, because of the very second-rate nature of the political leadership in Israel at the moment. The problem with this action, apart from the very large numbers of innocent people who are getting killed in it, is that it isn't actually likely to achieve the aim set out for it. If I thought that Israel actually had a serious plan for stopping the rocket attacks on Sderot and other Israeli towns, then I'd find a lot more sympathy in my heart for the action. What this is about, I'm afraid, is sordid electoral politics in Israel, and the desire of various politicians to get themselves spurious reputations as hardliners. 6 months from now, there will still be rockets being fired from Gaza into Israel. Despite this operation, once this is all over, it will continue to happen. If it were a serious operation to stop this, if such a thing could be contemplated, there'd be more to be said for it. But it's disproportionate, not because of the level of arms involved, but because it simply doesn't have anything to do with its alleged aim.
Well, okay.
That's the real problem that Israel has.
Douglas, I think I called you Andrew earlier, and I apologise for that. You know, you have the stature of a tennis player, clearly. But how can this do anything but strengthen the Hamas position, not only in the region, but across the whole Arab world? They've all of a sudden, look at the march yesterday with thousands of people there, with Hamas, you know, it was 12,000 people, Hamas posters, you know, people like Alexei Sayle and Annie Lennox marching alongside people with Hamas posters, and all of a sudden they're sort of heroic freedom fighters.
Really?
They've been strengthened.
You think Hamas or Annie Lennox become heroic freedom fighters, or Alexei Sayle needs to tell you what's right and wrong in the world?
Your problem is this, if I may interject just a moment, your problem is this, that the very, very foolish and unbalanced ideas, a gentleman over there enunciated one of them just now, that Israel in this conflict is Goliath and the Arabs are David, when Israel, in fact, has about, what, 2% of the land mass of the Middle East and about the same population. This idea that Israel is the aggressive bully is created in the public mind. This war is not going to be won by rockets. It's not going to be won by tanks. It's being won or lost on the television screens of the world. If Israel loses the support of the peoples of Europe and North America, which is in grave danger of doing, then Israel will lose the war.
Douglas Murray.
When Israel risks, like in 2006, having 1 million of its civilians having to live under threat of rocket fire, this is something which should be beyond its concern about what European governments think or don't think. You mentioned earlier about the huge number of civilian casualties. I can't think of another situation in war in which a fifth of casualties are civilian, and in which the Hamas have suffered up till now perhaps as many as 400 casualties. 400 terrorists being killed seems to me to be good work. It's good work for the future of Israel. It's good work for the future of the region.
Upwards of 75 children have been killed. You can't call them terrorists.
No, I didn't call them terrorists. I said they were innocent civilians. But that 4 times that number of people being killed, the targeted people being killed, are terrorists, and they have been killed, and that can only be good for the region. It can only be good for Israeli security. And if the Arab world really cares about the Palestinian peoples, why doesn't it do something for them practical instead of whining about this tiny slither of land which Israel occupies? Why don't they realise that if there's going to be peace in the region, it relies on there being a Palestinian solution and there relies on there being an Israeli solution? That can happen, but the first thing that has to happen is that the Arab governments and the Palestinians realise that Israel isn't going anywhere. If they made that realisation, why would they be firing rockets into Israel proper? This isn't disputed territory. They're firing rockets into Israel. Why are they doing that?
I know where you're first.
We have to look at the root causes of this recent conflict. It didn't start on the 27th of December when the rockets started flying and the eruption of this recent conflict. We have 6 months of siege and blockade over Gaza. People are starving in Gaza. Starvation by Israel, blockading supplies of food, medical aids, and everything to Gaza. There is a 41 years of occupation. Palestinians are not allowed to have their freedom. Israel withdrew from the Gaza, from the settlements, but it continues its occupation of the Gaza Strip by
Esther, let me bring Esther in. I mean, I just wonder, you know, as a Jewish woman, obviously you have this emotional attachment to Israel, I'm sure. How do you feel at the moment about all this?
If I were God, I would ban religion. God's given us how many thousand years of trying to make the world work religiously, Rabbi? And we have failed. You are a Semite. I am a Semite. Why can't we live together? We are, in the Middle East, neighbours. Actually, my emotional loyalty is to the country I was born in, which is Britain. So what I feel about this is, if I were God right now, I would say, Hamas, God's not on your side. Jews, you're not chosen people. I chose humanity, and you have failed me. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to melt the ice caps. I'm going to cause the waters to rise, and I'm going to see whether that brings you together.
Is that why it's happening?
And oh yes, overpopulation, all this stuff going on.
Is this okay? Is this about religion?
This is not about religion. This is about a free, democratic nation fighting Islamist terrorist regime.
Hold on, Islamist?
Yes.
All right, and Israel is a Jewish state, is it not?
And it's a democratic Jewish state.
Yes, and there are all kinds of other differences, but the most important thing they have in common is they're all human beings and they need each other. Israel has so much to offer beside bombs. It has expertise, it has skills. If it exported its doctors, its irrigation experts, its scientists...
Israel has to defend itself when it
How
is
do
being
you
attacked
defend
like
yourself?
any nation.
You defend yourself politically. Politically.
Zoe, do you not, as a liberal, take some pleasure from the fact that an Islamist, a hardline, conservative Islamist organisation, we've heard what they're like, Hamas, we know what they're like, we know what their policies are, we know their attitudes to gays, we know their attitudes to women. Do you not take some pleasure in the fact that their command and control structure is being destroyed?
No, look, I can't take anybody who could take any pleasure from any of this is completely sick in the head. I mean, the point is, what I'm hearing here is a lot of people arguing tit for tat about who's in the wrong and who's in the right, and that's fine at an individual level. A lot of people are very angry. A lot of people do feel very vengeful, but at a state level, you have to look strategically, and this isn't going to work strategically. And you know, you do have a moral responsibility at a state level to behave in a reasonable, not vengeful, but strategic way.
Douglas, very quickly. Douglas, then I'm going to go to the audience. Douglas.
I just asked what anyone in Britain would do if we had 6,000 missiles raining down on us and we had a sixth of our population living in bunkers.
Okay.
We wouldn't tolerate it, and nor should Israel.
What, would you tolerate that? If we had these rockets raining down on us in this country, what would we expect our government to do?
Well, the rockets have been raining down on occupied Gaza, and they've been raining down on the West Bank. That's where the rockets have been raining down. It's an occupied country. Your man says that they're fighting an Islamic terrorist regime. I was in Nablus in 2002, and I saw the flattened police headquarters where they'd tried to fight the Israeli invasion with guns, and they'd brought in F-16 bombers that killed hundreds of Fatah, not Islamic terrorists, Fatah soldiers, and not soldiers even.
And they're, of course, the enemies of Hamas at the moment, and the internal struggle.
Oh my goodness, that was a lot. Gosh. Islamist Muslims. I mean, this is all just so crazy. The video itself, it's so long, and I do not want to, you know, play everything. So I guess we should just stop. Yeah, what do you guys think? What do you guys think about this video? I'm sure the Muslims would not like Douglas right now. They would so much hate him because Douglas is always, you know, saying all these things about Islam, about the Muslims, you know. He was saying, if I were God, I would cancel religion. There will be nothing like religion. What do you guys think about that? At this point, I do not even know what to say anymore. What are your thoughts on this? Drop a comment down below. I totally enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this video as much as I did, give it a huge thumbs up. And please share this video. And if you're new to the channel, join VeraCity. Hit the subscribe button below. Turn on the post notification bell so that you can always be the first person to know whenever a new video drops. That's guys, I'll see you in my next video. Love you. Bye guys.